Adventist Possibility Ministries. Adventist Possibility Ministries. Third time. Adventist Possibility Ministries. It is not a new ministry. It is an expanded ministry. It's an old ministry of the church that has been refocused. Adventist Possibility Ministry is grounded in the belief that the gospel transforms the ways we see ourselves. I will be speaking about one of those, what I call sub-ministries. I'm going to be speaking about those that are caring for others, are caring for maybe someone that is deaf or blind or physical immobile or have mental challenges or have a child that has, I wouldn't call it challenges, I would call it possibilities, and I'll explain why. Or others that are grieving because they lost someone, or others that are caring for people that cannot care for themselves. We recognize that disabilities and loss are very challenging, but that does not stop the people from having many possibilities and doing different things. We see people through the transforming lens of Jesus Christ. We advocate for the recognition, we advocate for the dignity of the people and the respect for every person. He or she may not look like me. He or she may not talk like me. He or she may not act like me, but they are filled with different possibilities. So possibilities ministries. We affirm people. We understand that all people are gifted, are needed, and are treasured. People go where they are welcome, and they will stay if they are valued. Each person is unique and has a God-given purpose. Included in that purpose is the call to enrich the life of others, which flows out of a sense of gratitude. We are not a program. APN, Adventist Possibility Ministries, is not a program. It is a movement moved by the Holy Spirit that support people that are deaf, people that cannot hear like you and I, but they can hear things that you and I cannot hear. People that may not be able to see just the way you and I see, but they see things that you and I don't see. They have other possibilities. People that may not be mobile, that cannot walk. They may not walk like you and I, but they can do things that maybe you and I either can't do or don't have time to do. People that have mental challenges. People that are like children that are orphans. Sometimes their parents may have been killed by a pandemic. Does that sound familiar? Or their parents are just not present in their lives. People that are grieving the loss of a spouse. People that are caring for others. And that's where I'm going to spend my time in this presentation. I'd like to talk to you about people that are called caregivers. These are people that are caring for others. How do we minister? How do we support? How do we embrace? Do we include people that are caring for others? So one of our objectives is to revive the concept of worldwide missions and sacrificial missions as a way of involving not only pastors but every church member, young and adult, in reaching out and supporting those that are caregivers in the joy of witnessing for Christ and making disciples. We have seen that an increased number of church members would like to participate and are participating in evangelism. May not be the traditional way that we used to do evangelism with a tent or a big meeting with thousands of people coming in, but we may have more than thousands of people joining us in evangelism efforts through Zoom, through Google Meets, through any other ways of communications, video or audio communications. So what we want to know is how we can provide an opportunity for those that are caregivers to also participate, like coming to meetings or joining an evangelistic meeting by media and sharing their stories and testimonies as part of that evangelistic outreach. How do we engage in evangelism and using or allowing those caregivers to use their gifts and abilities? I'll tell you a story. My wife is a full-time caregiver. She's caring for her adult and her mother. Her mother needs full-time care. My wife, as a caregiver, her day sometimes begin at 5:30 in the morning when she has a little time that before her mother wakes up, because sometimes she wakes up at 10, sometimes she wakes up at 8 a.m., sometimes she wakes up at 6 a.m. She will come knocking at our door. And she wakes up in the morning. That moment, my wife has to be with her throughout the whole day until my wife puts her to bed. Yes, my wife puts her to bed. Until that moment. And sometimes through the night she wakes up. My wife is caring for her. She needs someone to cook her meals, breakfast, lunch, and supper. Somebody that will come with her and that will make sure that she needs help when she goes to the bathroom, to make sure she takes her medication. Throughout the day, she needs direction on everything. So Gloria is there full time. How do we care for people like Gloria? I had a friend, and my friend, his first child was one of those childs with possibilities. Oh, beautiful child. Grew up to be a young man. He had another child. The second child also grew up to be a young man. And he took care of his brother and helped his dad and his mom to take care of that brother. The three of them were caregivers. They cared for each other. One day my friend called me that his son, his second son, the caregiver, did not wake up, died in his sleep. Months after that, his son died. These caregivers were grieving. My friend also died. Sad story. How do we care for them? How do we take care of the caregivers? And how do we allow them to participate in evangelism? We need to make sure that they have lives that are full with good and beautiful experiences. How do we train? How do we train our pastors? How do we train our elders? How do we train our church members, young and adult, to be alert, to be awake, and to help those caregivers? How do we do that? It's extremely important. So these are ways that we want to suggest. We need to help our pastors and elders and preachers and leaders of the church to develop sermons, seminars for guiding caregivers in our church. How do we help them? Take a seminar on how to be a caregiver to a person with Alzheimer's disease, for example. And then once you learn how to do that, then you can go to that church member or to that neighbor. Because as a caring church, we also care for our neighbors. How we can go to that neighbor and says, I have received training and I know how to care for people like your father or your mother. If you want to, I can stay here for 4 or 5 hours and give you some respite. Or we have this good program going at the church. You may be able to join through any media in your house, and I'll care for your mother or father that you're caring for. We need to look also to provide opportunities for people that are caregivers to gather together, to talk about their experiences, and to find support. All of those things are important. Also, we feel that we need to strengthen the discipleship role of pastors and teachers and other frontline workers to take care of the caregivers. We need to look at ways to provide our pastors and church members about the correct theological understanding about illness. And we need to unlink illness from sin and demon possession. How to do that? How to help them understand that the result of illness is not a punishment for that person, and many times the caregiver feels that he or she is being punished. So we look at ways in caregiving, on supporting caregivers, or how to prepare for those caregiver roles so that we can bring relief to the caregivers. We would like to encourage our pastors and teachers to be active in learning how to be caregivers again, to provide respite for the caregivers. There is a program in our church that is called the Adventist Learning Community, an online training where we have a number of training workshops that you can learn on how to help others and how to help caregivers. Invite caregivers, not only church members, caregivers, by giving them someone to relieve them, to come to the church to learn skills and also to learn from the experience of others. And at this time, I like to encourage you to look at that sometimes neglected group of people, the caregivers. Let me share with you that many times caregivers have one of these two endings, and we need to see how we can help. Number one, a caregiver is so involved because of the help, the assistance that the person requires, that person is day and night there caring for that other person. And many times, because they are exhausted, they die before the ones that they are caring for, because they didn't have anybody to come and take care of them and help them. They didn't have anyone to come and care for that caregiver. Other times, once the person that they are caring for dies, the caregiver is so exhausted and sometimes find himself or herself lost. What am I going to do now? That they lose purpose in life and they die very shortly. So we as a church, as a caring church, we need to look at ways that we care for the caregivers. Please, look around in your church. Identify them. Sometimes maybe a mother or a father that have a child that is different than others, that may be a little loud when it comes into church and make noises that are not something normal in a child, as we call it normal. And instead of looking at the person and saying, what are you doing with that child here in church? Please, look at ways on how you can help that caregiver, to support them, to help them, so that they can fully participate in church. There are other ministries, that Adventist Possibility Ministries, ministry to people that Adventist Possibility Ministries have. And I encourage you to visit and look at the different resources, at the different videos that we have with all of the people that we mentioned before, all of these people with different possibilities. But also, do not neglect the caregivers. They are, as I said, many times forgotten. And they need our help. They need our support. We need to care for the caregivers. Thank you and welcome to Adventist Possibility Ministries, caring for the caregivers.